A very good morning to all who are joining us in this live webinar today. This is Sally Chiu from Temasek Polytechnic, bringing to you the sixth and the final live webinar for the year 2014. The series of complimentary live webinars are brought to you jointly by the Singapore Training and Development Association, better known as STADA here in Singapore, and the Center for TransCultural Studies at Temasek Polytechnic. Through these webinars, we seek to spin a web for knowledge sharing and to connect thought leaders from around the world. This is STADA's commitment to contribute to knowledge sharing for the development of human capital capabilities for all its stakeholders. This morning, I am delighted to introduce to you Liz Wiseman, President of the Wiseman Group, a leadership research and development firm headquartered in Silicon Valley, where some of her clients such as Apple, Salesforce.com, Gap, Nike, SAP, Microsoft, Temasek, and the list goes on. They're all located there. She is also the author of Multipliers, How Best Leaders Make Everyone Smarter, a Wall Street Journal bestseller. She has conducted significant research in the field of leadership and collective intelligence. She is a frequent keynote speaker. She writes for Harvard Business Review, amongst other business and leadership journals. She was a former executive for Oracle Corp for 17 years. She has served in many senior positions there, including as Vice President of Oracle University and as a global leader for their human resource development area. Liz has so much to share on why learning beats knowing in the new game of work and how to be a rookie smart. And I will hand the time over right now to Liz. Liz, over to you.
Sally, thank you very much, and thank you to STADA for inviting me to join everyone in this conversation. Thank you to everyone who's made time to join in, and I hope that despite that we are many, many, many miles and kilometers apart from each other and in different time zones and really even in different days, it's still Monday for me, that I hope that this will be a conversation and that you'll contribute through chat and through your questions. I want to begin our conversation really where I began my career. I began my career in talent development and in talent management. I went to work for Oracle, and one of the very first jobs I had was, despite the fact that I was very young, I was 24 years old and a year out of business school, I was asked to build a corporate university for Oracle. I was asked to build Oracle University, and I didn't know a lot about this, but I did know that any respectable university needed a crest, a logo, and so we went out and got one, and I went through rifling through my drawers, and I found this. This was actually the crest for Oracle University, and you might notice up there, there's a Latin mantra, a slogan, Sapere est Valeri. It's Latin for knowledge is power. Now, we chose this after, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes of deliberation because it sounded strong and aggressive. We were on the cusp of the information age, one of the first companies to make information available through relational databases, and we felt that having that knowledge was having power and having a competitive advantage. But that was 20-some years ago, and the world of work has changed a lot since then. We're now not on the cusp of the information age. We are immersed in the digital age, and information is now abundant. More and more information is available to more and more people. Technology is allowing our business cycles to spin really fast, so fast that a lot of professionals don't even face the same problem twice. And our innovation cycles are spinning faster too, which means that the information and the knowledge that we work hard to obtain doesn't stay true for very long. It becomes obsolete faster. And in this environment, having knowledge isn't enough. You know, the critical skill isn't what you know, it's how fast you can learn. And the question that I want to explore with you today, it's the question that I've explored in my research, it's the question that this book, Rookie Smarts, explores, is that is there power in not knowing. You know, how does what we know get in the way of what we don't know, but need to learn to stay vital, to stay relevant, to stay competitive? And is there actually an advantage right now in being inexperienced? I want you to consider with me this idea that perhaps our rookies, and what I mean by rookie is someone who's new to something important, new to something hard, doing it for the very first time, are perhaps our rookies some of our most valuable players? And are we perhaps at our most valuable when we're in a rookie state, whether we're young, a student, new to the workforce, or even an experienced executive? Here's how I'd like us to begin, and Anton's generously going to kind of advance our slides and keep us going. If we can advance here, I want to begin by asking you to teleport yourself. Now, some of you might be familiar with the concept of a teleporter from, the Star Trek movie, or even the show from many years ago. The idea that you could transport yourself in place and even in time. And what I want you to do is I want you to transport yourself back to a place and a time when you were a rookie, meaning doing something important and hard and doing it for the very first time. It might have been as a student, it might have been your first job in the workforce, but I want you to identify it, and I want you to go back and remember what it was like to be a newcomer and a rookie. And I've got a set of questions here I'd like you to consider. Number one, what could you see that other people couldn't see? People with more experience. What could you see that they couldn't? Who did you seek out for guidance? What did you do to prove yourself quickly and perhaps score some points, score some wins? Number four, how did you get feedback and stay on track? And number five, how did you recover from mistakes? And I'd like you to consider that. You might want to jot a few notes down, and I'm going to ask you to send in your responses on group chat. And if you want, you can respond per the question and even enter in the question number, or you can just share your observations. The common theme between these questions is, how did I work when I was new to something? Now, while you're sending that in chat, what I want to do is I want to share with you one such rookie story. And I know many of you are students, so I want to share an experience of someone who is right out of college in her very first job entering the workforce. This is Stephanie DeMarco. Over on the left side of this this picture, you can see a photo of when she's quite young, new to the workforce. She graduated from the University of California at Berkeley. She graduated from Berkeley in 1979. She took her very first job in the financial services industry. She graduated with a degree in business. And in this very first job, she was responsible for keeping track of the trades for the company. And as she began to keep track of the financial trading positions and transactions, she could see this was a tremendous amount of manual work. Now, this is in the early 80s now, and this is just the beginning of the information management era. It's just the beginning of enterprise computing and the automation of so many business processes. She goes to her senior management and advocates that they should build an online tracking system to keep track of these trades. Well, the senior management agreed with her, and they began this process. Now, back in the early 80s, the computer industry was dominated by what was called big iron, meaning mini computers, like the DEC mini computer, the size of a delivery truck, these massive, massive computers that are housed in a data center and controlled by air conditioning, with a price tag of $30,000. Now, she went to work for a small trading firm, and this was a pretty hefty price tag for this trading firm. Meanwhile, IBM comes out with the very first personal computer, the IBM PC. It's got a price tag of $1,500. It can't do much. It's considered to be a toy by so many people in the industry. But within a release cycle or two, within a year or so, IBM has now got a personal computer with a price tag of $5,000 that has the same computing power as this DEC mini computer with a $30,000 price tag. Now, Stephanie looks at this and asks a simple question: why can't we build these information systems on a PC? Now, the industry pundits and leaders look at this and say, that's a ridiculous idea. No one would dare build a reliable, secure, high-performance information system on a PC. It's a toy. Now, Stephanie saw something that was not only possible, she saw something that looked inevitable to her. She and a partner, who had a computer science background, started this firm called Advent Software with this idea that they could build these big information systems on a PC and getting the price performance of a PC. Soon they have a working system, and they have one customer and two customers, and soon Stephanie is walking through the streets of Manhattan calling on financial services firm with this incredible value proposition, and they're earning customer by customer. She recalls an early trade show where a competitor referred to Advent Software as that company from San Francisco using baby computers and run by a little girl. Well, Stephanie took that company through a rapid growth cycle. They became a publicly traded company, and they now have a market capitalization, a market value of $1.5 billion, managing trillions of dollars in assets and financial trading, all because someone who was new to the industry, new to business, and new to technology could see something that everyone else couldn't see. This is one example of a rookie move, and I want you to consider with me that perhaps in this state of being new to something, not knowing how to do something, not knowing the rules, that we actually do some of our best work. And I'll share with you what we found in the research, but what I'd love to do is invite you to continue to chat in your responses when you consider a time when you were new to something. Here's the nature of the research that my research team and I did. We studied about 400 different work scenarios. And the work scenario might be build a training course, troubleshoot a customer problem. I think the most complex piece of research, the most complex piece of work we looked at was the build out of a corporate campus. And what we did is we asked managers to describe for us how an experienced person performed that work, and someone who was inexperienced, how that person performed that work. And we asked them to describe how they thought about the work, what they did, and how well they performed. Move to the next slide. Before I ask someone to read it, here's what we generally found. We found that experience brings a lot of assets, a lot of upsides. With experience comes obviously knowledge, credibility, resources, confidence. We amass data points that inform our powers of intuition. But with experience also comes a number of blind spots, a number of things we don't see. You know, what happens when we already know the pattern, when we already know the answer? If we could move to that slide, Anton, and maybe if you can get that slide up, what I'd love to do is ask if there is someone there in the room who can read the first two paragraphs on that slide. Okay, it looks like we've got someone who's willing to have a go at this and read that for us.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Diana from School of Business in year 3. It doesn't matter in what order I know. Just read it. In a word. The only important thing is that the first and last are in the right.
Keep going, and others can help you with this.
Without problem. Essentially, your mind is reading this automatically without even thinking about it.
Thank you so much. Here we've got these scrambled words, but yet we can still read it. Why is that? What happens when we know the pattern? What do our minds tend to do?
Not to recall.
Yeah, we tend to fill in the blanks. We tend to insert our own assumptions. We tend to make things up. We find that once we have seen the patterns, we can stop seeing new possibilities. Sometimes we stop seeing mistakes. Sometimes we stop asking people for input, or we stop seeking feedback. And with experience often comes bad experience, and we tend to develop scars or scar tissue, which reminds us, don't go down that path. Last time you tried that, it didn't work out so well. So while experience brings some upside, it also brings some interesting downsides. If we go to the next slide, here's what we also found in the research. We found that being new to something, being ignorant, if you will, can actually provoke top performance. And what we found is that the way we operate when we're at the bottom of the learning curve tends to be very different than how we operate when we're at the top of the learning curve. Now, at the bottom of the learning curve, we start in a state of ignorance. And I don't mean stupidity. I mean simply a lack of knowledge, an intelligent ignorance. And often we're saying to ourselves as we're given something new to do, how hard could this be? And so unencumbered often by the very knowledge that what we're doing is hard, we willingly embark and we enter in what I call backpacker mode, much like a hiker who's not burdened with lots of equipment. Their light state allows them to travel further, to venture out, to explore, and to innovate. And then once we kind of move out of that state of ignorance, we begin to discover things as we venture out. We move into this state of awareness, and often in this awareness comes this great realization of, what have I done? And we realize it actually is hard. And we're seeing this learning curve get steeper, and we're also seeing this gap between what we know how to do and what needs to be done. This gap is big, and it's that gap that propels us up the learning curve. And then we go into what I think is the most powerful form of learning. We learn not because we attend a class or because we are on a webinar. We learn when we have no choice but to learn. And lacking insight and knowledge of our own, we go into what I call hunter-gatherer mode. You see it as that little orange icon on the screen. And in hunter-gatherer mode, we ask ourselves, who can guide me? And we start to seek out other experts. We find that when we're inexperienced, when we're rookies, we tend to actually mobilize or bring in 5 times the level of expertise than experts do. We get the network effect of not knowing. We also found that we operate in what I call firewalker mode, the way that you might walk across hot coals, cautious but quick. In our state of not knowing, we tend to be very cautious, with our antenna up, trying to sense a situation and feel out a situation. We tend to move not in big, bold steps, but very cautiously. But we move fast because we're trying to prove ourselves quickly. We then move into what I call the pioneer mode, this hungry, scrappy way of working where we improvise. We get resourceful because we're out sort of in a foreign space and we don't know what we're doing, so we have to close that gap. We find that when we contribute, we often contribute big. And we found that in the knowledge industries, where information is a competitive advantage, we found that people without experience actually perform at higher levels than people with experience, particularly when the work is innovative in nature and when speed matters. We actually tend to be faster as we scramble up this learning curve than when we operate in a position of mastery. Now, if we're not careful, we can move to the other side of this S-curve where we start to get comfortable in our own expertise. And we start to guide and advise. We start to protect the resources that we have, or we protect the reputation. We tend to move in consistent, steady patterns where we can get surprised that people in a rookie state are sprinting around us. Now, it's not that people without experience always perform better than people with experience, but there are many situations where they do. And this hungry way of working this way of working that I call rookie smarts, is particularly valuable right now when the world of work is changing and spinning really, really fast. As we move to the next slide, I think what I want to ask you to do, let's go skip over that polling question since we don't have our polling function, is to consider with me how might our experience become a trap? A trap that's similar to a trap that you might use to trap the monkey. It said that you could trap a monkey with a basket with a small opening, just big enough for that monkey to put the hand in to grab the banana, but not big enough for that banana to come back out. We essentially get trapped in place, perhaps. And let me ask you to chat in your observations. And I've got this list up here: productivity, strength, safety, giving, and priorities. I'll briefly describe each, but I would like to have you share how you think you or your company or your school can get trapped by your experience. And we'll see which is the most popular of these. Often we're trapped by productivity. We have technologies and systems and tools that keep us moving fast and keep us productive. And we can be reluctant to upgrade or to try things that aren't productive. Second, we might get trapped by our own strengths. It's a good career strategy to be good at something, to be the go-to guy. But what happens when you wake up and the world has changed around you? And you're no longer the go-to guy. Maybe you're not as good as many things. Perhaps we need to pivot off of our strengths. Or you've built up a leadership position in your company or your class, your rankings in the system, or your company has taken a lead in the marketplace. It's very tempting to start playing it safe. And Mark Parker, the CEO of Nike, has said that there's no more dangerous position than that of playing it safe. Maybe some people have gotten to a state in their career where they've been successful and they start giving back, sharing and advising and mentoring young people. But what happens when the successful people aren't being mentored themselves? Perhaps they're preparing young people for a world that no longer exists. Maybe you're trapped by your own priorities, putting your career on the back burner because something else in your life is on the front burner. But what happens when your job becomes routine, mundane? What happens when you know how to do your job and you can essentially do it in your sleep? Perhaps all the aspects of your life get a little sleepy. Let me pause and see if we have anyone who wants to chat in any ways that you feel we can be trapped by experience. And you can simply answer number 1, 2, 3, or 4. Number 1, you or your company are defending your lead and you start playing it safe. Number 2, you're playing to your strengths and you might be missing market opportunities. Number 3, I think I lost the slides. Maybe someone else can read that off for me.
Number 3, optimize for efficiency rather than discovery. Number 4, we start hiring for skills rather than smarts. I see Jeff from Ransik University, Thailand. I also see Rizky from ConocoPhillips, Indonesia, and I also see Vodafone, Hirian. We have people coming from UK, US tuning in, and there are some are participating. Would any of you now who are connected like to venture an answer?
I'd be happy to. Good morning, and thank you, Sally, for the introduction. My apologies for being a few minutes late. Google did not let me get on time this morning. So I missed the first part of your presentation, Liz. I very much regret that. But seeing the slides, I think I can catch up pretty quickly. Sally, would you mind leaving the slides up so we can read from those?
Put up the slides for the floor. Yes.
Okay.
Polling question. There he goes.
I would really like to address number 3. We optimize for efficiency rather than discovery. I play a management role, mid to upper level in a university, and after 3.5 years in that role, my job has really shifted from creating new ideas, coming up with new strategy, to trying to maintain the same level, if not more, output than the previous year. In Thailand, at least, we have a very strict and very serious QA system, quality assurance, which requires that we have more output every year. So less attention goes to developing our strategies, our quality, I think, ironically, given that it's quality assurance, and more is given to how much we're giving back, how many projects we're doing instead of how good they are.
Yeah.
And
it's a dangerous trap, isn't it?
Very much, Liz. I think what you're saying, and stop me if I'm overlapping or repeating what you said earlier this morning. But it's really a question of creativity. For me, when I get tunnel vision, I lose all of my creativity. If I do the same thing every day, I lose my creativity. So the first thing I do in the morning is I wake up and I start with a cold shower. And that's kind of a metaphor for trying to start backwards, trying to think in a different way every day. But that gets very, very challenging when you're with the same people and working towards very quantified goals every year. So.
Well, I think that the idea of a cold shower is a really nice metaphor. Now, I don't know that everyone wants to take a cold shower. That's not fun. But it's this idea of really waking ourselves up every day, trying to go in with this fresh start. As I studied these rookies, I found this very interesting breed of rookies I came to call perpetual rookies. And they had these very deliberate practices for how they maintained this fresh, vibrant way of looking at their work, akin to a cold shower in the morning. So thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to offer a perspective on how we can be trapped by our own experience or by the success of our company?
Liz, we have a question from Rizky from ConocoPhillips, Indonesia. His question is, do you think that a person in his or her mid-career should already start being star during early career in order to be successful until late career?
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you, Rizky. And I might need a little bit more explanation about what that means. Does that mean being a star performer? I think I need a little bit of help understanding the context for that question.
Rizky, we are coming to you. Can you help with a little bit more information about your question?
Please.
Hello, Liz. This is Vivian Sadono. I'm in ConocoPhillips with Rizky. Actually, it's my question. Hi.
Hi.
So actually, my question is, should a person be a star from his or her early career, so that to be able to be always star until the late career, or can someone in the early career is just ordinary and then in the mid-career he or she can be star?
You know, okay, so I think I understand the question a little bit better now.
A star performer, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Here's what I found in the research is I found that we tend to do our best work when we're new to something. And, you know, a lot of companies have an assumption that people don't perform at their highest levels until their mid-career or late career where they've developed years of experience. We often, in our job descriptions, want people with years of experience, and what I found is that people are actually at their best when they're new to something. And I think my recommendation based on this research is don't wait until you have experience to contribute. Contribute big early in your career, in your very first job. I found that people are at their most valuable in their first 6 months in a role. So that's the message, I think, to the employee, but the message to the company is you can get star performance out of your employees throughout their career by keeping them fresh in roles, never letting them stay too long or get stale in a role. So, I think young people are capable of an incredible contribution. Contribute big early on, and as you get experience, make sure that you continue to take those cold showers, so to speak, so that you're constantly staying fresh in your work so you can contribute at the highest levels. Are there any other questions, Sally, that we should pause for at this time?
I'm not reading the questions yet, but perhaps you could go back to your presentation while they prepare their questions to be sent into the group chat.
Okay, great. So let's keep moving. And you might, throughout the presentation, be thinking about how you or your company might get trapped in your own experience. Now, if you are brand new to the workforce, if you're a student, I want you to think about something different as I continue this presentation. I want you to be thinking about how you can put your rookie advantage to work, meaning how you can take advantage of the fact that you're new and inexperienced, and rather than see this as a disadvantage, how can you use that as an advantage for you and for your employer? I mentioned that there was this very interesting breed of leader. This leader who, despite years of experience and success, maintained their rookie approach, their rookie mindset. I found these leaders were curious. They had high levels of intellectual curiosity. They were humble, meaning they were teachable. They were open to learning from people who were their peers, people who were above them, but also open to learning from people below them in the organization. They were playful. They had like a childlike sense of wonder and excitement about their work, and they were deliberate. They had very deliberate ways that they maintained their rookie smarts. Let me share with you an example of a couple of these rookies I studied, and if we can go to the next slide. Let me share 4 such practices. I would equate these to that cold shower in the morning. On the left here, you'll see this is Bob Hurley. He started Hurley Sports. Some of you might be familiar with the Hurley line of clothes, of surfwear and skatewear, actionwear. He built this company with what he said were a series of rookie wins. He started as a surfer. And he was shaping surfboards. It opened a surf shop and then wanted to sell T-shirts and boarding shorts. He said at every stage of the company, I didn't know what I was doing, and it turned out to be this incredible advantage. See, now Bob is in his 50s. The company's been successful. It's part of the Nike family of products. And I said, Bob, how do you maintain this rookie smarts, this vibrant way of thinking? And he said, there are days when I get stuck and mediocrity slips in and I feel stuck. And he said, and I go down to the beach and I surf with the amateurs. And he told me a story about when he was a young surfer and he was out surfing on Huntington Beach in California in these big prime waves with these other elite surfers. And his board slips out from underneath him. His surfboard goes under the pier and over onto the other side of the pier where the waves are small and there's a bunch of teenagers surfing. Well, among this group of teenagers, he can see a surfer that went by the nickname Rabbit. It was Wayne Bartholomew. He was Australian. He was the reigning world champion surfer at the time, the top surfer in the world. And Bob sees him over surfing with these teenagers, and he said, hey, Rabbit, what are you doing over there? You're a legend. Come surf with us over here. The waves are righteous, as a good surfer would say. And Rabbit's response stuck with him over years and years, because Rabbit said, that's kind of you, but I like to surf over here with the kids. It's where I get my energy. They teach me. And Bob kept that lesson for himself, that when he was getting stuck in his own ideas, his own experience, he would grab his surfboard and go surf with the amateurs. But when the waves weren't big that day. Maybe he just walked down the hall. He said, I'd walk down the hall and I'd go find the newcomers, the new college graduates, the people who were doing interesting, vibrant things, and I let them teach me. Up here on the top right, this is Francois Truffaut, a French film director who had directed 50 films across 25 films before he died in his 50s. And with every film, what he would do is he would walk back to the bookstore in Paris where he bought his first book on how to direct a film. He would rebuy the book, he would sit down, he would reread the book so he could remember what it was like when he didn't know how to direct a film. Rather than simply drawing on his expertise, he rediscovered this state of not knowing. Or the green box there, this rubbish bin. A lesson I learned from a very dear mentor of mine, Dr. C.K. Prahalad from the University of Michigan, this just renowned management professor. You know, one day his wife was walking through his office at home and she sees this trash bin and it's full of stacks of handwritten notes, and she sees it thinking that perhaps accidentally CK has thrown his research papers into the garbage. She shows them to him and she finds that they're not his research papers, these are his teaching notes. And CK is a tenured professor at the University of Michigan. And he told her, I actually threw them in there because I feel like my students deserve my best thinking and fresh thinking every semester. Every semester, this renowned professor would throw away his notes, his scripts, so his thinking would be fresh and new. Or on the bottom right there, an internet CEO who said when he gets stuck, he goes for a walk and he walks in a single direction and he doesn't allow himself to turn back until he's had a legitimately new idea. Or his version of the cold showers, he said, sometimes I go into my closet and I sit down and I kind of strip down so I can see things fresh, and I just meditate, you know, metaphorically stripping away his beliefs, his knowledge, his assumptions, the things that cloud his thinking. Let me share with you, before I pause to take a few questions, let me share one way that I have rediscovered my own rookie mind. And for me, it was when I stepped out of the role of leader and I became a follower. Now, I want you to go back with me and sort of teleport. I'm going to teleport myself back to, it's about 12 years ago. If we can go back to the slide here, I think we skip back on the slides. If we can go back to the slide that we were on, I'm going back, about 12 or 13 years ago. If we could advance those slides, that would be terrific. To a beach on Hawaii. On this beach on Hawaii, this is where I was serving out a sentence because my boss was seeing early signs of burnout in me. I was running the university at Oracle. I was running Oracle University, and I was starting to feel a little stuck. He said, Liz, why don't you go on a vacation? At the time, I had 3 small children, ages 7, 5, and 3 years old. You can see over here, this is my son at 3 years old on our vacation in Hawaii. And he said, I just want you to go on vacation. I don't want to see you for a while. And so my husband and I decided to go to Hawaii. And my boss, who was a meditating Buddhist who practiced meditation, he had been practicing being more present with his own son, letting his son kind of lead the way and set the pace. And on this vacation, I decided I was going to take this challenge. I took it at about day 6 of this vacation. Now, as a working mom, I operate in sort of hurry and worry mode, always hurrying to the next thing and worrying, making sure my children are safe, we have the equipment, and slathering them with sunscreen so we can go out on the beach and play. And on day 6 of this vacation, I decided I'm going to take this challenge. Now, my husband took our 2 oldest children and he went off to the breakfast area, and he said, why don't you get Christian, our young son, and meet us there. Now, Christian's still in his pajamas. He's bouncing all over the room, bouncing between beds, and he's this kind of curious ball of energy. And I decided rather than hurry him out the door that morning, I was going to let him be the leader, and I was going to go wherever he went, and I was going to stay as long as he wanted to stay that day. Well, it took us about 20 minutes just to get 50 meters from our hotel room, towards the breakfast hut, because he had to stop and look at every curious thing along the way. And I see the breakfast area. And between the breakfast area and where we are is a koi fish pond. And I am, of course, hoping that he doesn't notice the koi fish, because it's now been 20 minutes and we need to get over to breakfast. Well, of course, this little 3-year-old boy notices the koi fish. What 3-year-old wouldn't notice the koi fish? So we stopped at this pond that was right next to the path. So I stopped because I was now following his lead. Well, now he got down close to the water and he's got his hands in the water, and I could see that I was going to be there for a while. So I squatted down next to him, and I was now looking at the fish at eye level for him, seeing these fish through the eyes of a 3-year-old. Now, I commented that these were, what pretty fish, but I was hoping he would look at them and then move on. Because, see, I had seen koi fish before. I had seen koi fish in Kyoto, Japan, in these ancient temples. I had seen them in Japanese villages. But he, down low, had never seen them before. Now, I kind of stooped down low, and next thing I know, he's down on his belly. And he's down on the ground, and his hands are in the pond, and he's playing these fish. And this is where I just fully surrendered. And I got down on my belly, and I'm now laying across the path with my hands in the water, and the fish are lunging up, and they're nibbling at his fingers, and he's squealing with delight. And through the eyes of this 3-year-old, and following his lead, I rediscovered these koi fish. These weren't just overgrown goldfish. Each one was unique, and each one was magnificent. And it was laying there, seeing things through his eyes, that I rediscovered something that I thought I already knew. But it only happened when I stepped out of the role of leader, when I conceded the lead, and I took on the role of follower. Sometimes being able to see things new, being able to let go of our experience and discover something again, means that we have to step out of the role of lead and step into the role of follower, where we step into and embrace the role of learner. So as we kind of wrap up this presentation, there's a few questions I want you to consider with me. If you've built up experience, how can you renew your rookie smart? Alvin Toffler said in his book Future Shock, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. What is the learning that we sometimes need to unlearn? How do you renew your rookie smarts if you've got experience? And I would ask you to be considering, if you're brand new to the workforce, how can you work your rookie smarts to your advantage? Let me share just a couple ways that you might consider doing this. If we go to the next slide, if you've got years of experience and you want to renew your rookie smarts, maybe you ask the naive questions. You go into a meeting and ask the questions that a newcomer would ask, the simple questions that clarify. Maybe instead of drawing on your own expertise, you multiply your expertise and you go out and consult 5 other experts, and you get this network effect of not knowing. Perhaps you disqualify yourself, meaning taking a job that you're not fully qualified for, a job that's a stretch, maybe even a stretch 2 sizes too big. Maybe you staple yourself to a problem, one that's outside of your job description or area of expertise, and you let that problem drag you out into a new space where your current answers and models and programs don't apply. Maybe like CK, you throw away your notes. Before we go to questions, there's one last thing I'd like to show you. When I started this research, I began with this question, how does what we know get in the way of what we don't know? And I found that actually when we're in experience, we tend to do our best work when we're in the learning zone. If you want to figure out where you might be, are you in the learning zone, learning and performing at your best, or have you gotten comfortable in your knowledge, in your expertise, or you have these extremes, either burnt out or maybe redlining with the engine revving a little bit too fast, you might take this quiz. I find in this green learning zone is where we tend to do our very best work, and we don't need to wait to the end of our careers to do it. We can do that right away. But here's the other thing I found, the thing that maybe surprised me a little bit in this research. I found that not only do we do our best work in this rookie zone, it's where we tend to find our greatest happiness, our greatest satisfaction. We asked nearly 1,000 people how challenged they were in their job and how satisfied they were. And what we found is a near perfect linear correlation between the two, meaning as challenge level goes up, so does satisfaction. And as the challenge level in our jobs go down, when we're comfortable, when we know how to do it, we actually become dissatisfied and unhappy in our work. Anton is going to share with you a video, and I think it captures the challenge of being out there in this rookie space, but also the thrill of the victory that comes with this. This is Zia. She is a 4th grade student, an 8-year-old girl. She's in Park City, Utah, which is the home of the 2002, perhaps, Olympic Games. And she is atop the 40-meter ski jump, contemplating going down this jump for the very first time. I want you to just sit with her in this space and watch her as she summons the courage to do something new and something hard for the very first time.
I'll be fine.
Have fun.
I'll do it. Well, here goes something, I guess. Oh, okay, you can do this. I'm gonna jump.
You got it.
Whoa, my ski's slipping off.
Just remember, never snowplow, okay?
No snow plows.
Just keep it straight and you'll be fine.
Okay.
Same thing you do on the 20.
Straight. Do you go faster on the in run?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Is it any steeper, do you think? Not much?
Same steepness, it's just longer.
Well, just longer. Just longer. Just a bigger 20, that's all.
Yep. Have
It's
fun.
a bigger 20. Go ahead. You got this. I got it.
It's fine. You'll be fine.
Okay. Here
The longer you wait, you'll be more scared.
I go. Just the suspense at the top at the first time freaks you out. That's the only thing. It's so fun. Huh? 60 seems like nothing now. Whoa!
Thank you for playing that. I think young Zia's approach to that ski jump really captures the essence of how we operate in our rookie space. And you know, we tend to do our best work here. If we're new to the workforce, I think the message is contribute immediately. You know, you're brilliant even when you don't have the expertise and the qualifications. If you're like me and you've been in the workforce for a while and you've gotten a lot of experience, it might be time to not just get a pat on the back for our expertise, but a push out into this comfort zone where we do our best work and we find our greatest satisfaction. Sally, what questions do we have for people who are joining us here on the webinar?
I have a question from Jeff from Rangsit University, Thailand. May I read the question? Jeff says, I think it's very interesting to consider how the idea of a lifelong career track has changed, especially regarding the average amount of time that young people stay with a job.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeffrey, I think you're making a really good observation. I think for a number of years, companies were, as we say, freaked out that employees weren't staying with a job very long. And, I think what they've done is rather than try to retain them longer, I think we're realizing that people are choosing to live and work on a learning curve rather than to climb some artificial career ladder. And if employees are going to be moving between jobs and choosing the exhilaration of learning cycles, then what companies have to do is, yes, they do need to work to retain them and keep that challenge and vibrancy available to them inside the company. But even more important, if an employee is only going to stay for 2 years, the smartest companies will figure out how to get them to contribute immediately rather than waiting 6 months for them to ramp up or 2 years before they're given a big job. Give them a big job to do right away and allow young people to be brilliant day one. We've seen eBay do this. eBay, instead of recruiting people and putting them through an induction program, they sent a big message to their new college grads and said, don't wait. If you have an idea, contribute immediately. They saw patent levels, ideas for submission to patents, go up 25% with this group compared to the rest of the population by simply saying, start now. Don't wait till you're fully trained. Start contributing.
Absolutely. I think that the companies are getting smarter. I'm sure you have a better idea of this than I do, but some companies aren't, though. So when I wrote that comment, I was directing it more towards the students in the room. For me, myself, looking back on my resume, I started off in the auto industry. I then moved to, I was an engineer on a sailing ship. Now I work in education. My next move will be into finance. And I think that, at least I've been told by some executive coaches, that you shouldn't be afraid to really diversify your experience, especially when you're a bit younger. But you have to, the key to that is you have to learn how to tell your story. You have to learn how to put it all together and explain to an employer, or even to yourself, how does that make me a better person, and how can I apply that to my next job? I think that one interesting industry that I would like to ask you about, Liz, is the tech industry. An industry in Silicon Valley, there's a lot of hype, a lot of talk about the working environment, how they stimulate such a creative working environment. But I hear conflicting stories, because whereas I hear, for example, in Google, they give employees 1 day a week to indulge in their own creative projects. I also hear that there's a very conforming culture, working culture, which I know from my own experience can be very detrimental to creativity itself. That if everyone, even if they come from diverse backgrounds, starts thinking in the same way, then you instantly lose that ability to stimulate new ideas. So maybe my question to you, Liz, is what do you think about arguably the most important industry these days, the tech industry, and how they are doing with keeping this creative rookie spirit alive, as you call it?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question, and before I answer that, I want to echo one of your comments. And I think what Jeffrey said to everyone is, you've got to learn to tell your story. Like, don't be afraid of going after all of these new challenges. But with each employer, if you don't have the experience, if you don't have the 5 to 10 years of experience that might be required for that job, you've got to be able to tell a story, not about how much you know, but about how fast you can learn. One of the last chapter of the book focuses on the talent management practices for companies that want to retain their rookie smarts, stay vital as they grow. And one of them is to consider in succession planning not only what skills and experience has a person amassed over their career, but do they have a track record of success in rookie assignments? Meaning, how quickly can they take on something they don't know how to do, wrestle it down, master it, and move to the next thing. If someone's got 2 or 3 data points that shows that they've got this pattern, then I think managers and companies would feel confident putting them in this foreign assignment. And I think this is going to become more and more important in our talent management, less focused on what skills people have, what knowledge they have, and more about their learning agility. To get to your question, tech companies, one of the reasons why I wrote this book, I live right here in the heart of technology, and on any given day you can walk through the cafes, the coffee shops, and you hear the talk of the latest hot startup. And you can almost be sure that, after some certain period, that hot startup is not going to be the hot place to work anymore, because you start to get that conformity and the efficiency that comes in as you scale and as you grow. And I began my research with this question: can a large company retain this youthful, vibrant way of working? And it's certainly the path of least resistance is for them to lose it. But I think we're seeing companies that maintain it. You mentioned Google. I think Google is one of the examples of a tech company that has had that culture from its beginning, from its roots. It's maintained it, and it's been really successful. And I think part of it is their hiring profile, the kind of people they hire. Of their 5 hiring criteria, experience is the least important. What they look for is learning agility, intellectual curiosity, humility, which are these patterns I saw with perpetual rookies. And they look for leadership agility, and very particularly they look for the ability for someone to be comfortable taking a leadership role in one setting, but then being willing to take a follower role in another setting. I mean, I guess not dissimilar to what I learned by following around my 3-year-old son, is that ceding the leadership and turning the leadership over to other people is as powerful as taking the leadership yourself. So they look for people who have this very fluid orientation to leadership, and I think it's how they're retaining this culture of innovation. But it's very dangerous. Mark Benioff, who is the CEO of Salesforce.com, I think is a really good example of this, and I'm going to read his endorsement off the back of the book so I get it just right. He says, as a company grows, nothing is more important than retaining a culture of innovation. With Rookie Smart, a company, even a big company, can take risks, innovate, and operate like a challenger. And I think there are companies like Salesforce, like Google, who are proving that it can be done, that a company can continue to operate and think like a challenger, like a rookie, but it's really hard. It takes deliberate practice, and I think it takes the talent management practices, some of which we just have talked about, to do it.
Thank you, Liz. I'm just wondering if Jaden from Republic, or Karen or ConocoPhillips, you look like you have a question. So is Jaden ready?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you for your lecture. Okay. Actually, I have one question regarding to the leader's role, right? Leader's role. Actually, in retrospect, I used to work at LG company, LG HR division company in Korea headquarters. Around 7 years ago, I was also new employee, newbie in HR department. So at that moment, I generated so many ideas. So many good, fresh ideas in my thinking, right? So I suggested to executive staff, but after suggesting my several ideas, they declined. They declined all my ideas, and then they replied to me, "Oh, Jaden, I don't think it will make it because we already did it. And then we failed it already. So can you come up any other ideas?" So after that, I generated other ideas as well. Same. The reply was same. Jaden, I don't think it will make it. So my question is this. Of course, all the generations, the experienced staff are very stubborn, and then they want to pursue their way to make it successful, right? But in terms of absorbing the new ideas, right? In terms of absorbing new ideas, as a leader, how can we make it balance? Whether they take it or not, how can we make it balance? Observing new ideas or just pursuing the current way of working? How can we balance as a leader? This is my question.
Yeah, Jaden, thank you. So I want to address this from two sides, if it's okay. One is I want to focus on what the leader can do,
Yes.
but I also want to focus on what that newbie can do. And you know what? Here's what I found in my research. The value of the newbie, the rookie, doesn't really come from their fresh ideas. The value of the newcomer is actually that they bring no ideas. Because if I'm brand new and I go to the executives and I say I've got new ideas, chances are those new ideas are probably going to be swatted away with an excuse, here's why it doesn't work, because people have built up scar tissue and reason. The value of the newcomer is actually that they don't know anything. And so when you don't know anything, by example, when I started at Oracle and I was asked to build Oracle University, honestly, I had no clue how to do this. So what did I do? I went out and I met with every one of the heads of the product divisions and the sales divisions and the consulting divisions, and I asked them, like, what do we need to do? And so I would gather in their expertise and then put some shape to it and often adapt it and bring a fresh perspective to how we could accomplish that. And you can only imagine that when we put out solutions, they were thrilled with it because they saw their own ideas kind of echoed back and made perhaps even a little bit better. So when we're new, we can build up a lot of resistance by trying to be kind of the new, innovative hotshot. Instead, when we go into rookie smart mode, which is asking, listening, seeking out the expertise of others, and mobilizing the wisdom that already exists in the organization, we're actually more powerful. Let me then address it from the leader's side, because there is an obligation of the leader. Here's what we found that the best leaders do. First, I should say that we found the kind of leadership people need when we're out in this rookie space, doing something we don't know how to do, is very similar to the kind of leadership that I wrote about in the book Multipliers. Leaders who offer a stretch challenge, give people some space to solve it. Leaders who think in terms of questions, not necessarily answers. But there's three very specific things we found that these leaders do. One is they give people freedom, but they give them clear direction. I was talking to a military leader. He was a officer in the U.S. Navy. And he said these rookies, he said you have to be careful because they're all thrust, no vector, meaning they move really fast, but they don't have the right angle or direction, and so the leader has to give someone a very clear vector, very clear direction, but once they've given the direction, the leader can step away and let that person run as fast as they can in that direction. So that's one. The second thing we find is that the leader's job is to size the challenge right. That when, and often leaders size it too small. They think someone's a newcomer, they don't know anything, and they give them something that's too easy to do, which sets an expectation that we don't really expect you to do much as a newbie. But a leader can also set that expectation too high, and the person doesn't know where to begin. So I think the art of the leadership is right-sizing that challenge, something that's going to stretch them but not break them. And if you've got a brand new employee, truly a rookie and a newbie, you know, give them a challenge that's a micro challenge, something they can probably do in 2 weeks. And then last thing is that the best leaders offer a safety net. If they're going to put someone up on a tightrope, up high with a big scary job, make sure that there's a safety net underneath them. And this probably won't shock anyone on this broadcast, is we find that the best safety nets for rookies are not their managers, but perhaps a colleague, a more senior colleague, someone not in the direct hierarchy, who can kind of be there to catch them when they fall or wobble and sort of put them back up on that tightrope and keep going. Those are the things we've learned that the best leaders do.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
I think we may have time for just one final question. I'm not sure if Konoko or anybody else is ready with the next question. If not, we'll just move on to, I see, Karen.
Yes. Hi, Liz. This is Karen. I'm from Temasek. Hi. So I'd like to ask, how do the rookie smarts, how do they actually negotiate this cross-culturally? Like in some cultures, it is like where the nail that sticks out, you get hammered down. So what advice do you have for students to negotiate in this different, in different environments such as this?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I should say that I have not systematically studied the cultural issues, although the research we did was very cross-cultural. So the research was done in the US, in Western Europe, we did in Eastern Europe, parts of Asia. So we've got a pretty broad cross-section of experience. And I think my answer to that would be, we change our cultural norms by first working within the culture. And so if you are trying to navigate this in a culture where the nail that sticks up gets hammered down, it's use the hierarchy. Particularly if you're in a culture with a lot of power, distance in that hierarchy, use the hierarchy, meaning consult with the leaders, stay close to them. We actually found that people in their rookie mode operate very conservatively, and they know how to use the hierarchy. Because they don't know what they're doing, their confidence is actually low. We find that rookies aren't these arrogant, bold, brave kind of employees, that when we're in this rookie space, we have to be careful, and we take these small steps, and at every step we're checking in with our stakeholders, we're checking in with our boss, we're building that kind of buy-in. So as we tackle these challenges, instead of thinking big and bold, think in terms of lean, small experiments where we're getting buy-in and support along the way. That's actually the way that we that's really the fundamentals of rookie smarts.
Could I also comment on that? I think that being in Asia for about 5 years now, I've really seen this issue firsthand. If you put a company of 1,000 to which 95% were lower level rookies in a room in the States, and then ask their opinions, I think in the States you'd have a lot of opinions. Here in Asia, especially certain countries, the room would be silent. And that is because they are intimidated, and they have this very extreme sense of hierarchy in many countries. But one thing we have done as an organization, we have the concept that we have open discussion, but it's not a democracy. So when we discuss, our employees know that there's no wrong answer, there's no wrong idea. You will never be criticized, but you won't be responsible for that decision. The responsible person will always be the leader. Now, one of the ways we put this into practice is actually by bringing students into our executive board meetings. Now, even though those students usually don't speak much, they're very intimidated, it changes the entire psychology of the boardroom, because all of a sudden we remind ourselves what we're doing this for. I think even in education, especially in education, actually, we forget what the main objective is, that everything is for the students. And by having simply those students in the room, we change the mindset of the leaders.
Yeah, it's a great insight. And you also might think of having extreme imbalances. We find that when there's sort of an even blend of rookies and veterans in any culture, the veteran voice is always going to dominate. And so the best balances are maybe even just having one rookie in that conversation changes the dynamic, or everyone's a newcomer except maybe one person with experience. That sometimes can help. But Jeffrey, thank you for that.
I would like to continue. I would really like to continue, but time has caught up with us, and we want to respect the viewers who have committed that 1 hour with us. So it's with much regret that I would like to bring this engaging session to a close. Viewers, I'm sure you would like to join me in thanking Liz for the wonderful and generous sharing. Liz, here are the cyber claps coming your way.
A cyber kiss? I like that.
Can you do that as well? Can you do that?
Thank you so much for participating in this complimentary live webinar brought to you by STADA and Temasek Polytechnic. This video will be uploaded on STADA's YouTube account for your viewing. Please search STADA and you'll find the video. LinkedIn users, look for the group called Community Spirit, Wisdom for the Road. As Confucius said, he who learns but does not think is lost. He who thinks but does not learn is in great danger. We spoke a lot about danger. And finally, this is Sally Chiu, your moderator, signing off from the Global Connect Village, the connecting place at Temasek Polytechnic, Singapore, wishing all early Christmas greetings, best wishes for a great year ahead from STADA and Temasek Polytechnic. Till we meet again in January next year, as Mahatma Gandhi said, live as if you were to die tomorrow, learn as if you are to live forever, and inspired by Liz, be a perpetual rookie and continue into the year 2015 to learn, unlearn, and relearn as challenged by Alvin Toffler. Have a great day, everybody, and Liz, thank you so much. And Liz, thank you so much, and all who are participating, thank you so much. See you next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz.